Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to really dig into a specific set of source material. It's all centered on these allegations about former President Barack Obama, his involvement in politics after leaving office, specifically looking at the early days of the Trump administration. So our mission today isn't really about saying if these claims are true or false. It's more about unpacking how this source builds its case, looking at the specific details it picks out and the connections it wants us to make, really understanding the narrative strategy here.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating, I think, is how the source weaves together these different bits of information. Some are public records, sure, but others are more speculative. And it uses them to build this argument about, well, alleged political interference. So we'll explore what it claims, how it frames those claims, and why that framing matters for understanding different viewpoints. Like you said, we're sticking strictly to what the source gives us, looking at its particular take on things.
Okay, so let's unpack this first piece. The material you shared, it starts by focusing on a really specific sequence. You've got former President Obama making a return trip to Hawaii, and then almost immediately, a federal judge blocking President Trump's travel ban. The source makes a point of saying these happened just 48 hours apart.
Right. And the source is quite specific here. It mentions the judge, U.S. District Court Judge Derek Watson, in Honolulu. And it notes he blocked the ban targeting individuals from, I think it was six Muslim-majority countries. The source also points out that the judge specifically cited Trump's own comments about Muslims from the campaign trail as part of his reasoning. That's the factual base it establishes.
Okay, but then it adds these layers, these personal connections, which is where it gets interesting, according to the source. It highlights, first, that Judge Watson was actually an Obama appointee from 2012. And then here's the bit the source really leans into.
Right.
The idea that it's maybe not just coincidence. Both Obama and Judge Watson, they graduated Harvard Law School.
Yeah.
Same time. Exactly the same time. And the source even brings in stuff from, like, Reddit. People online pointing out Obama reportedly had dinner super close to the courthouse, like minutes away. And probably, they speculate, within maybe 5 minutes of the judge's home during that same trip.
And you see how the source presents these details. Not just as facts, but as, well, something more suggestive, implying a potential link, maybe even a scheme. It mentions a Honolulu Star report calling Obama's return unannounced, which the source finds significant because he'd just been there, 3 months earlier with his family?
Yeah, exactly.
And it notes he arrived this time with just a small entourage, including Secret Service. It even pulls in Pop Sugar, reporting he played golf ashore, but also met with tech leaders. And the source interprets that as suggesting, quote, his return to politics might be sooner than we think. It's really stacking these details together, creating this impression of coordination, maybe, without explicitly proving it.
Right. It's building that narrative. And it doesn't stop there with just implications. Having set that stage, the source then makes a much bolder claim. It flat out asserts that Obama, quote, never actually got out of politics. It goes on to allege he set up a nerve center, that's the term it uses, just 2 miles from the White House, and calls it a war room for leading an insurgency against Trump. Pretty strong words.
Yeah, that's a definite shift in tone. From hinting at things to making these direct, quite forceful claims. And to back this up, or at least add to it, it brings in that Eric Holder quote, which it says was revealed just last month. The quote being, it's coming, he's ready to roll. And the source uses this quote to, as it puts it, add fuel to the fire, suggesting this confirms the whole insurgency idea, that Obama is trying to, quote, force Trump out. And the motive, according to the source, because Trump is supposedly undoing his so-called legacy. I mean, the language itself, nerve center, war room, insurgency, is very deliberate. It frames everything in this really adversarial light.
Okay, so after those pretty high-stakes political claims, the source then shifts gears a bit. It brings in something quite different, but uses it to kind of bolster the overall argument. It talks about the McDonald's corporate Twitter account.
Oh, right. The tweet incident.
Yeah. It reminds us that the account tweeted something disparaging about President Trump, specifically mentioning tiny hands and saying they missed Barack Obama. McDonald's said they were hacked, of course.
Right. McDonald's claimed to hack almost immediately. But what's interesting is how the source connects this seemingly random, corporate mishap back to the main narrative. It points out that Obama's former press secretary, Robert Gibbs, is now the communications director for McDonald's, or was at the time this source was compiled. And then it digs up this old quote from Gibbs himself talking about his time as press secretary. specifically about being told not to even acknowledge the drone program.
Right, I remember that part of the source material.
Yeah, Gibbs apparently said, and the source quotes him, "You're not even to acknowledge the drone program. You're not even to discuss that it exists."
Mm.
And he talked about how crazy it felt, being asked about something widely reported but having to pretend it wasn't real. Like,
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
yeah. Yeah, the source uses that exact comparison he made.
Exactly.
And then, to kind of tie a bow on this whole McDonald's thing, the source adds this little comment. It says, quote, "It's funny, the Democrats seem to get hacked an awful lot," implying, maybe it wasn't a hack or maybe there's some pattern here that fits the larger narrative it's building. So you can really see the technique, right? These events, the Hawaii trip, the judge, the nerve center, even a fast food tweet, they seem unrelated on the surface. But the source weaves them together. It juxtaposes them, highlights certain details, draws these implied lines. Yeah, it's all designed to lead you towards a specific conclusion about Obama's post-presidency actions. It's a really clear example of how you can select specific pieces of information, arrange them in a certain way, and even without direct, smoking gun evidence for every connection, you can build a pretty powerful narrative. It basically invites you, the reader or listener, to connect those dots yourself based on the way the information is presented.
So wrapping up our deep dive for today, what we've really looked at is source material that constructs this, well, compelling narrative, maybe speculative, but definitely compelling, about alleged political interference. It connects dots between a judge's ruling, a trip, an alleged war room, a corporate tweet, and it offers this very specific interpretation, arguing it all points to a coordinated effort.
Exactly. And the key takeaway for you listening is really about how information gets framed. Even when it's based on facts that are out there publicly available, the way those facts are selected, connected, and presented, the language used, like nerve center, it all shapes a particular story. So understanding how a source makes its connections, what implications it draws, that's just crucial for critically evaluating anything you come across.
Right. So here's something to think about. In this age where we're just flooded with information, how does a source's choice what details to include, what to leave out, how to arrange them? How does that shape your understanding of an event? And maybe what tools can you use to kind of deconstruct these narratives when you encounter them, especially when they seem to connect dots in ways you hadn't thought of before?